Hey, welcome back to the Tim and Steve show. It's Miller time. Jeff Miller's in the house.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Busy week.
It seems it, huh?
They're all busy right now. This is the busiest AD month for me, I think, is May because it's a condensed season and we have so many things going on and so many senior events and other school end-of-year stuff. So it's a fun time, but it goes by in a blur.
I bet. Is this a kind of wind down for you, or is it like really just picked up and then you'll finally hit that point where it's like, hey, the year's over. Now we can focus on next year?
Well, you know, our new season pretty much starts July 1st, our new school year. So right now there's a bunch of things I'm, preparing different things that we need to get approved by administration for next year's athletic budget.
Right.
So now is like June, once we get out, that's the key time to, who's getting new uniforms. There are certain things built in costs that come out like, we have to send out all the football equipment at the end of the season, and it goes and they have to recondition the helmets. They check them. Helmets are good for 5-6 years, and they have to come back with a sticker on them every year that they've been reconditioned. That's all the padding has been checked. They put them on a computer to look at 3D angles and stuff, and we send the shoulder pads out. If anything's broken, they fix them, and that's why football is an expensive sport. I mean, we have the equipment. I mean, most of those helmets are anywhere between $300 to $500 a piece. So
wow.
Money well spent, though.
Yeah, and things are so much safer now, and everything like with the whole concussion piece. Like I remember when I played, you'd get hit, come off the field. I mean, I got completely knocked out one time and was laying on the field. It was back then we used to have just a freshman team. We had a freshman, a JV, and a varsity. Huh. And we had 14 kids on my freshman team, so we pretty much played two-way. And Larry Carl was the longtime varsity coach here. At that time was the freshman coach. And there were no talk about concussions or anything. And he got in the med kit and got one of the things, the old smelling salts like that. And I perked up, and I all I saw was stars. And he goes, "Hey, how you feeling?" I go, "I feel great, coach." He goes, "Oh, it's good because I need you. You need to go back in." And I'm sure I had a concussion. I mean, I was going over the middle to catch a pass, and I got just lit right up. Never been hit that hard in my entire life. I mean, I was completely knocked out.
Wow. I'm
sure it was a helmet-to-helmet hit, but
right.
They didn't have that. I mean, and like on defense back then, you could still, date myself, you could still, on the defensive line, at the snap of the ball, you could give the offensive lineman in front of you a head slap. So you could slap them right on top of the helmet, which is what you used to do to the center.
Wow.
Because the centers, got their head down, and you just, and
drive them into the ground.
You just drive them into the ground, and so it's things have changed to the point where now, there are times if there's any type of a head injury, I have to, if I see it, suspect it, I have to pull the kid, and they can't go back in, and it hasn't happened. It happened at first. When we first started doing concussion stuff, where I would have parents come and say, "Listen, my kid's fine. He can go back in the game." And I said, he can't.
Right.
And I know, when I was still in the newspaper business, I was over covering a Kearsarge game. What they used to do, because they have an athletic trainer, is once they pulled a kid off, they would take the helmet and then drive the helmet up to the school and lock it inside. Because helmets are fitted for a player.
Right.
So you just can't go grab another helmet. Because parents were like, because it was all new. And we were one of the first schools that went through this whole concussion protocol. And I've sat down completely fine and tried to take the test, and it's difficult. It's all a reaction. And Nurse Healy's been doing it so long that she can tell by looking at the scores. She can say, when even before she sends it, because it goes to a doctor at Dartmouth, even before it goes, she'll go, yep, they're going in the protocol because they're, because they take a baseline, and then it's the same exact test that they take, and you can see the difference. The times are just, they're so much slower reacting. You can tell when somebody has a head injury, and it's definitely an undefined science when it comes to this, because you might get hit on the head harder than me, but my head injury is worse than yours.
Right.
It just happens. You just never know. So it's gotten to a point where you can't take a chance.
And concussions are pretty scary because Lydia was playing basketball and got a concussion, and it was like we were pretty scared. And we got back towards Newport, and I was like, I'm gonna just call the ambulance, have them come bring her, because we knew for a fact she had it because she was repeating herself, and she was like so out of it, and it was scary. I was like,
you can tell.
And she's like, I can go back in the game. I'm like, oh no, you're not going back in the game. I can clearly tell. I convinced her that she flew, hit the roof, and she's like, I flew? I'm like, yeah. She's like, probably not a good thing to do as a parent, but it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, it
was scary.
You're trying to prove a point to her.
Exactly that. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just such a scary thing when you get that, and somebody's, that they, you can tell just by looking at them a lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of times they especially repeat themselves, and they'll just repeat them. I wrecked my race car once, and guy was like sitting next to him, and he's like, "What happened?" And I just told him, and then a minute later, he's like, "So what happened?" I'm like, "You need to get him checked out. He's not okay. He definitely has a concussion." So, but it's good that that's in there now. I'm sure, I think football's gotten obviously less. They've taken a lot out of it, but
the thing is, if you look at the statistics, there's less concussions in football than there are in a lot of other sports. There's a lot of concussions, believe it or not, in soccer, just hitting a soccer ball.
Soccer is
another sport that is spirit and cheerleading, because it's gotten to this a lot of dance and a lot of fancy and flips, and kids get dropped all the time. And
right.
I mean, we had one year we had to not go to the state competition because we had 3 or 4 girls that all had concussions at the same time.
Wow.
Because of injuries in practices. This was before I was the AD. I was, coaching at the school, and it was like, we need to make sure that, and they've upped that sport as well with all the training that the coaches have to go through.
Right.
They have to go through a comprehensive program that, so that they make sure that they spot the right way, and it's not like you used to be able to do and just, hey, flip her up in the air, and
right.
So, but there's been a lot, and there are the people that say that it's overdone, but
that's for safety.
I would hate to just take that thought and let somebody play and then have them, collapse with a seizure on the way home because we didn't stop them from playing. I'd rather them be perfectly safe and have the parent yell and scream at me and say that you didn't need to do that than have one kid get hurt.
Right.
How long do they have to sit out if they're?
It varies. It usually goes with, no. They're supposed to stay off social media, any of that. Then they're supposed to sit and, quiet. Then they can after a couple days, they can start to come back to school. Usually what they do for Nurse Healy is they ride a stationary bike so that they're getting exertion. Then they take the test again.
Interesting.
And if the test is back to what their baseline scores were, then they can be put on a system where they have a couple of days of no contact practice, then a day of what would be called contact practice, and then they could go back to playing games. But it varies. There are kids that are back within a week, and there are kids that are out a month because they just, and then, there are ways that there are some kids that just never score well even taking a baseline when they're perfectly healthy. And it's hard to read on some of those kids. But they've made changes in the test to accommodate, I believe, for stuff like ADHD and, because you've got to pretty much, I think it's my phone.
I was like,
game day.
Whose phone's ringing? So you have some beautiful new bleachers down there at the football field.
Yeah, those are nice.
Those are nice. And is it next year supposedly going to move the tower back? Is that the plan? Or that's what I've heard anyways.
I haven't heard that. So, again, I'm hearing this from,
So it could just be a rumor.
You've got me.
Does it block the field right now when you're sitting in the stands?
Because originally when the tower was put in, there was no track. So the stands were closer. And, obviously it's evolved and now there's a track. And so, like when I would go there, I'd sit on the old bleachers, the bigger set of bleachers, and you just stay away in a corner. You can see everything. But if you're over to the left, you miss like that end down there. So the big new ones are going to be this similar, I think, like if you're way to the right.
Yep.
Someone said something about trying to move the tower back. I think Kevin O'Nella talked about that or something. I don't know. I remember
It's been discussed, I think, but I don't know.
It'd probably be very hard to do. I mean, that building's been there a long time. And
Well, the building needs some
TLC.
and I know that Rodney Page at the maintenance, who guy does wonders. It's in his, to do some things to fix that. I mean, the new thing that he built over the Connex on the other side,
Yep.
that's going to have dual purpose. That's, for NCTV to get up there to film football, track, field hockey, but it'll also give a space for visiting football coaches to go up because it's so small in there. And like I've been on the air with Steve Smith doing football games, and there'll be an opposing coach there, and they're talking in there, he's got to hit that bleeping guy, and it goes over the air, and Steve can get in trouble for that.
Right.
So,
No, absolutely.
Steve's had to tell them, please, you can't. And sometimes they get a little testy, and then I'll usually say, you need to stop, and then they'll give me well, who are you? And then usually when I tell them who I am, and I said, you'll stop or you won't be in here, they're usually fine with that. And then coaching staffs are, they think they're trying to steal each other's plays. So, they act like little kids sometimes. So
Kind of like babysitting.
So this way they, if it were a bigger press box, like, when we've played at like Monadnock,
Right.
Steve and I have our own little booth
Right.
for games, and like, they're basically separate rooms so you can't hear, so coaches have spots, but this one isn't as big. It's not big enough. I mean, we have to have the spot for Tim Spanis to run the clock.
Yep.
Which that's another thing. Any people who want to run clocks and do stuff like that, I need people desperately because and somebody to train because it's complicated. You've got to be able to do a varsity football game. Tim's an old fossil, so he's done it since the beginning of time. So he's an old veteran. He can do it in his sleep.
Right.
But there's a possibility coming soon that basketball games we're gonna add a shot clock. It's coming down the road. It's inevitable, and that's going to be another person I'm going to have to pay with a particular. They're going to have to be trained on how to run the shot clock, when to reset the shot clock. So and just even the scoreboard.
Right.
It's crazy. All these little added things. It was great here keeping the scorebook for basketball. Mr. Thurlow did it for 35 to 40 years. You didn't have to worry about it.
Right.
It's like if Tim gets sick and can't do a game, I can run the clock, but I do some basketball games, and usually once or twice a game there are parents and and coaches and everybody screaming at me, sometimes my own, because I've got to start the clock because I'm watching the game.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like distracted and like, oh man, I have a job I got to do now.
So it's, and PJ can run clocks, so I have him in, so that's another thing. Plug anybody. That and bus drivers that want to drive athletic trips.
Yeah, so the last visit and this visit, you need bus drivers, you need referees, not you, but like we need them in the state, in the area, so there's an opportunity, somebody to earn some money. And you need clock runners.
People that want to do that. I mean,
and videographers.
We have money in the budget to pay. They usually get like $25 a game or something like that, and it's great. I've got this guy who's doing all the middle school games.
I was just going to mention that.
He was in Massachusetts for 45 years.
He's good.
And he won't take any money. He just wants to do the games.
That's awesome.
And he's more than a middle school official.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've watched 2 or maybe 3 games with him. And, no, he's really good. He's very fair. One of the girls will look back and be like, that wasn't a strike. I'm like, it was a strike. So, focus on the next pitch. And
he's very consistent.
He is. And he's
so
very...
if it's 2 inches outside,
Yep.
every time it's 2 inches outside, he's calling a strike.
Yep.
So if that's your third strike, you better swing.
Yes.
Don't go, well, it was 2 inches outside. Well, he's been calling that all game.
Right. The biggest thing with umps is consistency.
Yeah.
Maybe for this ump, the strike zone ends up here. That's fine. As long as you know that and it's the same for everybody.
I don't mind.
That baseball game you and I were at, it was maybe more than 2 inches on the outside.
Right.
But he called it both ways. And clearly from where we were sitting, it looked like it'd be a ball. Yeah. But he called it both teams, and we knew every time the pitcher on the other team threw it.
It's up to the coach to tell their kids you've got to adjust.
Right.
If the strike zone is the waist to the ankles, if it comes across here, don't swing. It's a ball. If they're consistent, but if it's at your ankles, you better be swinging if you've got 2 strikes.
Right.
And kids sometimes don't adjust. I'd rather have a bigger strike zone than a smaller one. Middle school, high school, anything.
You're not kidding. And it's funny the step up between middle school softball to varsity. Huge.
Right, like we have a fantastic game today.
Yep.
Varsity softball. Monadnock is one of the top, probably 4 programs in our division. We like to think we could be a top 4 program. We're young, freshmen and sophomores, playing Monadnock today. It should be a fantastic game. Baseball, which has been struggling, is playing Monadnock too, who is the defending champion and the heavy favorite to repeat. So, but their coach is a great guy, and he's not going to be the kind of guy to, But
we're still undefeated. The girls are.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tough week this week. This game today, and then they've got the doubleheader rivalry with Stevens.
Yep.
Supposed to be beautiful weather.
Yes.
Hopefully, plug for Stevens. I know they'll have their concession stand going, I believe, at the baseball game. So
bring some cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, bring cash.
It's gonna be a fun night.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Emilio was. I told him, I was like, well, I might go to one of the softball games, and then he's like, why would you do that? I'm like, because I want to go watch the game. Like, I watch you play all the time. Like, softball's more entertaining than baseball, anyways, in my opinion. Like, I'd rather, when the girls play softball, I'd rather do that. Like, baseball's fun, but sometimes it gets boring, and it seems like the pace is slower.
Right. And you know what I found locally? Most of our girls who play softball also play out-of-season travel ball.
Yep.
Our baseball players do not.
Exactly.
So you see better fundamental play from our girls.
Yep.
Our young infield with 3 freshmen and a sophomore is as good an infield defensively as I've seen Newport have since I can, I go back to the 70s.
Yeah.
They are fantastic.
They're
High
good.
praise.
They play really tough defense.
All these girls, all they do is play, and they've done it for a couple of years now. And it's funny because I would challenge and I tell this to Emilio, and he gets all upset. I'm like, you can bring any varsity boy down here and go up against this softball pitcher, and I guarantee that you ain't going to hit it. But if they went down and hit the ball down there, they'd probably hit. Like, these girls are incredible. insane.
The other thing, these girls who play softball, they know how to bunt.
Right.
Boys don't know how to bunt anymore.
No, they
They
don't
don't.
really do it.
They don't watch baseball because, frankly, speaking at a national level, Major League Baseball hasn't really done anything to make it watchable.
Right.
They've got to stop these pitchers from taking 30 minutes between pitches, and batters taking a hike between pitches. Get in there, throw the pitches, speed the game up, and go.
Stop cheating.
Astros.
Yeah,
Astros.
and I know that I have
Red
mixed.
Sox, Yankees.
I mean,
allegedly.
I have kind of mixed thoughts on that, being an old baseball guy, because there are so many players that are in the Hall of Fame. Like one comes to mind, Gaylord Perry, as a pitcher. I mean, all he did was throw basically spitballs. So he was loading up a baseball all the time. And then you have most everybody's heard of Ty Cobb, who was such a nasty human being and individual. He used to sharpen his spikes and try to spike people when he'd slide into second base.
Wow.
And he's one of the best hitters of all time.
Didn't Mark Grace say for baseball, if you're not cheating, you're not trying?
Yeah, I mean it's part of the game. Like,
he played for the Cubs. When
Stuff
Chicago.
that like the Astros and the Yankees, and if they were doing some of that stuff with video cheating, I don't. But if I'm a runner on second base and I can see the catcher giving signs, and I tap my head to the batter, that I said, I think this is a curveball or whatever. We all did it in Babe Ruth. We did it in Little League. We did it in high school.
That's fair game.
That's fair, but they even want to stop that stuff now.
That's
Really?
crazy.
And that, to me, that's part of the game.
Yeah, I think that's part of the
If
game.
you're stupid enough to let somebody see the signals you're giving, or if you haven't changed things up, but
Now they got the
Again.
little calm things. I watched a couple Red Sox, quite a few Red Sox games actually this year. And
Yeah.
they're doing horrible, by the way.
Oh.
But they have these calms, so they'll I don't know if they're pushing a button or what they're
pushing a
doing.
button, and I
Yeah.
think
And
they wear
So
something.
it's like
Yes.
the football, how the quarterback.
Kind of like that,
I
but
hate all that
it
stuff.
hasn't been working. It's been several times where they had to go out, slow the game down again. Their calm's not working. I'm like, just throw the ball,
Right. I know.
just play the game. And you're not worth $100 million.
Oh, it's amazing what people make.
Isn't it?
It's crazy.
So what else is new and exciting?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I know we're in the. Oh, yesterday at the CVC qualifier
Yes.
in Windsor, Taylor Fellows, a freshman, broke the 800-meter girls' school record, which had been around since 1984,
Wow.
which was Colleen Halleck at the time. I don't know, a lot of people know Glenn Halleck, who still lives in town. It's his sister. It was a, long-standing 800 record. I think hers was 229 something, and I think Taylor might have gone 227 something, 228.
Wow.
She's a freshman, so I think she's going to really
Big things coming
bust
from
through
her.
that record, but the tandem duo of her and PJ's daughter Maddox
Yep.
is, they're pretty special. They're worth going to watch them run at a track meet, and he's going to have them for 4 years, which there is a home, well, it's not really a home track meet tomorrow. It's a meet at home, but Sunapee is running the meet. Every year we let
Oh, okay.
Sunapee run a meet. We always go. We always do it in between the CVC qualifier and the CVC final, because I think PJ had 4 or 5 kids qualify for Saturday. It's kind of tough to qualify. So this gives the kids that didn't qualify another meet, and it gives him the opportunity for his kids that do qualify. A lot of times they try another event and do something. And the problem is when he uses Taylor and Maddox in another event they've never done, they do it and they're really good at it. So
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so that's going to be the senior.
senior meet,
Recognition.
yeah, that's right. Because Zeta, you talked about your daughter. She asked me today if I was going to be there, and I said, I don't know. because I've got an out-of-town scheduling meeting tomorrow for next year, and it's probably going to take, I'll probably be there till 4 or 5 o'clock, so I may not make it back. But the goal is to try to get back as quick as I can, so that I can, because she made a face at me when I said I wasn't going to be there.
But she had a disappointing meet yesterday at Windsor with the javelin, which is her best event.
Yeah,
I was talking about it before we came up here, and she just she usually throws way further than what she threw yesterday. She's just disappointed that.
Yeah, I know. It's that's the thing with track. It's such an individual sport. There's one day you'll go out and you'll throw, no problem at all. Then the next day you go out, you do everything the same, and
just one little
20
thing.
feet shorter.
That's about what it was for her.
And it's like,
I don't know if it was that much, but it was pretty short.
What am I doing? Sometimes you don't know what you're doing, and I never participated in track, but I coached track for several years, and I took a lot of clinics and things like that. So I kind of came into it a little differently. And of course, you can always, somebody does something like that different in Newport, you can always thank PJ for that, because he's the one who, he wrote me in. He said, I just need an assistant coach. He had a paid position when I was first teaching. He said, I go, PJ, I'm a baseball guy. And he's like, oh, you'll be fine. I just need somebody. So then I come in, and then, with the way the family, this was, 10, 12 years ago, his family was changing. The next year he goes, I don't think I can do it this year. So he says, you're going to do it. And he said, I'll come down and help you out, which fortunately he did. But all of a sudden I'm a head track coach, and I have no business being one, and I just got an education from him. I went to clinics, I did stuff, and, I know enough about track to get me in trouble, but I don't know enough to fix some of the problems.
Right.
That's when and like PJ, he won a championship last year because he made a really smart, strategic move, because it was a bad weather day, and that's why he likes to get, you can compete in 4 events in a meet, but he likes it when he has athletes that might qualify in 5, 6, 7 events, because then he can kind of mix and match them into events and matchups and ones he thinks, because it's all about trying to get a number of points. And the meet, the D3 state meet last year was at Guilford, and it was during the week, and they don't have lights, and there were thunder showers coming. So instead of just saying, listen, we're going to get what we can get, because athletes are supposed to have a certain amount of time of rest between events. Well, the officials were rushing kids. So he had his 2 twins. Jagger had won a couple of events, and then he was going into the 200, which was late in the meet, which is his best event, but he didn't get his time to rest. So PJ knew he was gassed, and he thought that might happen ahead of time, because you have to register a couple days ahead for the events. So he just, on the off chance, he took Ryder out of an event and stuck him in that one as well. Jagger was ranked first in it, and I think Ryder was ranked like 4th. Well, Jagger was gassed. He ended up finishing, I think, 5th or 6th. But Ryder knew he had to do well, and he ran the race of his life, and he won that. And it was, we ended up beating Kearsarge by 2 points. Uh-huh. If he doesn't improve his position in that event, they don't win the state championship.
Wow. It's a lot of strategy to...
You got to plan, you got to, add up stuff, and you got to know by looking, because, we see a lot of the other kids in events, and he made that move. A lot of coaches never would have thought that far ahead to make that move.
Right.
And that's the reason why he won the first, that was the first track championship in 63 years. So
wow.
That's awesome.
We got to talk to PJ, because we should go down there and we can record it. I want to throw the javelin.
Oh, I thought you were going to get racing tips for the
You need to
5K.
throw the discus. Have him show you, really get a good spin going. You look like a discus guy.
Probably like stumble over, fall
You got
over.
the hair and just go down with that and throw scream.
Did you hear about our 5K?
I saw some pictures. You guys looked really
We
cute.
pink tutu'd it for charity.
I saw the one with you running. It must have been early with the chief, and you're running and you're looking at him, and he's just looking straight ahead.
I beat him, for the record. I beat him through the bridge. At the end of the bridge, he told me we're doing a 4:35 mile, and then I just kind of laughed and waited for Steve because that wasn't gonna. And that kind of
That
screwed us
gassed him.
both because I was totally smoked at that point. But I'm like,
Just through the bridge?
Yes, running
Well, he was
through the bridge.
a 4:35 pace. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
But I beat him through the bridge. In my defense, I thought 5K meant through the covered bridge. Got to the end of the bridge, I'm like, oh, there's more?
Yeah.
Well, running with Tim. Tim has sprint or walk. He doesn't have a jog down yet. Was it from Anchorman where he said jogging or jogging? I'm not quite sure if it's a
Yeah,
silent
it's
J.
either a fast walk or a run, or that's about it.
Yeah, so we got to work on Tim's ability to jog.
Because we're going to do another one on June 25th, most likely. And I think Chief's going to do it again, so we're going to challenge him. But he beat us by like 3 times. We're 42:47. He was 17:05 or close to that. PJ said we should have said triple time, but then the Chief was like, I just ran the marathon. I'm not feeling it. And I think he totally played us. But so next time we'll.
So you took it easy on him.
Yes, we took it easy on him. I felt bad for him, Like.
Yeah.
We
So
didn't
it's-
want to. It's
Don't
better
feel bad
two
for
of us
anybody
to-
running a marathon.
I know. And he's all upset because he did it in like 2:55. And I'm like, dude, you did a marathon on 2 hours and 55 minutes. He's like, oh, it's horrible. I'm like, the winner is like 2 hours and 6. And most of the top 10 are Kenyans and stuff. They're not even American. Like, dude, that is a hard thing to do. But if I had finished a marathon at all, I would be proud of myself.
It took me 6 hours and change, and the one and only one I've ever done and will do.
Yeah, we're not ever getting the marathons. We just,
No,
the
no.
5K thing, we can do this. So we raised $455 for charity. Of course,
Nice.
we matched it. We were hoping the Chief would match it, but we failed
We
at
lost
the.
the Chief.
But whatever. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it into that snack program. We haven't figured out how to get the money to the program yet because I was told if you put it if you give the check to them, that it'll go in the general fund.
Right.
Which we're not gonna let that happen because we work too hard for that.
Right,
So,
and that's a thing too that I've talked about in the past, and obviously it will affect Steve, but that's why people say, how come we don't charge admission at games?
right.
Because the admission goes to the general fund.
Right.
So we switched to donation, but I'd like to switch it back to admission, but it would require, writing a new policy that goes before the school board that money can go to athletics.
Piece of cake, got an inside man right here. Do this, sell it. You can sell it.
I mean, it makes sense to me. Like, it'll
Right.
reward the.
Because
the
I have
athletes. It's my own personal opinion.
Those calendar posters,
Yeah.
schedule posters that
Yes.
come out.
Mhm.
The company who does that, he sells the ads to everybody, and then he gives me a check for a couple $100 every season. I put that in an account for athletics. I have a couple of other things where we get money that way, and I put it in there, and I use that for stuff like all of a sudden we have no soccer nets. Got a big hole, and I need to go buy soccer nets for $400. So I'll, rush up to State Line, for emergency stuff. It comes in handy because it's stuff that's, especially like right now, my budget is spent.
Right.
So I have a little, anything I purchase is very, has to be very specific, and it has to be very cheap.
Now, is it a policy reason why we can't just give the check to Patrice and say this is for the snack program, or
I know it is for like
For
the
athletics,
stuff for
yeah.
athletics. It's been that way for a long, long time, and
It's usually how it is with most government-funded stuff. It's hard.
Right.
But an interview that Jeff Kessler did with you, he had said that Hunter had reached out to somebody and raised some money. So maybe there is a way to do it.
there's got to be a
where
way?
it doesn't go into the general fund. So we just got to do a little bit more research. But it's pretty awesome. We raised
yeah, that's great.
Almost $1,000.
$910.
Well, that's the thing. There have been times people, I think, have not wanted to donate money sometimes because they don't get to say where it goes.
Right, and if you donate the money,
Specifically.
you should be able to say where it goes, right? So
Right.
if I want to give you $5,000 for sports, it should be able to go there or not. Well, so yeah, I don't know. That's something to look into in the future.
Well, if we do get a big, like when we got the inheritance from Bob Skinner's estate at the ski shop for, it was, I think, over $90,000. It was like 10% of his,
That's awesome.
something to do with his estate. It all had to be approved by the school board, and there were certain stipulations in there that, how it was to be used, whatever we spent the money on. If the golf team or the ski team needs that item, they have the first right to use it, which that was right in the will.
Right. Yeah, because it would be nice just to come in and say, you know what, I want to give you $1,000 for this, and it to be easy.
I think the school board has changed the amount. The amount used to be where it had to go. Like if somebody gave a $250 donation, it had to be approved, and that just adds. It's like that's a no-brainer. That's something that admin, the principal or of that school, should just be able to say yes, and then put it to the use for what it is.
Right.
That's not a big item that, I don't think as a school board, I wouldn't think you'd want to micromanage $200 donated dollars to go to a snack program.
I can't speak for the board, but for myself, yeah, it just makes sense to me.
So it's something definitely to look into to try to make it.
And I just haven't done that because I don't know who I would have to take tickets. But again, I would go after kids and give them community service.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about the community service thing is they have to have it to graduate. And so, my kids, like Alicia, I think, was done with community service by like freshman year, but she still would do.
But she still does stuff.
Exactly.
Like if I went to her and said I needed her to do something, or if I went to Zeta and said, listen, I need you Thursday night because you're doing that, and she'll say, what am I doing? And I'll go, just don't worry about it. Just show up Thursday night. They would show up for me.
Exactly.
I have certain kids that.
Thank you for that.
That I do that, and they will do stuff for me.
Good job,
I need it.
Alicia.
So.
All right, so baseball, softball.
Track tomorrow. Middle school teams are on the road.
Okay.
Had to cancel the boys JV game today because
Just saw that, yeah.
they had to move the umpires to a varsity game, which is happening, but he wants to reschedule because I want our kids, our JV boys are doing pretty well, and that'll be a nice test for them. They'll have some good competition like they did up at Guilford the other day.
Yep.
Which was good for them. They were all fired up in school because they beat Kearsarge by a lopsided margin, but I said, what did you really gain from that?
Right.
I said, you gained a lot more losing to Guilford 11-3 than you did beating Kearsarge 31-1.
Right. Exactly.
Especially at the JV level. You need competition and play.
Right.
So.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jeff, for coming in again.
You're welcome.
We got our repeat. That's a good thing. That means we're doing something right.
I will come and talk about sports whenever you need me.
Perfect.
Appreciate it.
All right. For the Tim and Steve show, we'll talk to you later.